The future of My Hero Academia seems to be an arm's reach for manga readers. The end of the series is soon, but what would happen if the battle between the villains and the heroes seemed to be unwinnable, leading us to one person and one person only who can change everything? Eri, forcing Izuku Midoriya to transcend time itself with Eri's help in this What If. Welcome to What If Deku Went Back in Time. The world around Izuku Midoriya is in shambles. Everything they once knew has changed drastically. He's seen friend, foe, and everything in between die. But at the end of the day, the main thing he has seen is villain society thrive. Now this is something Izuku wanted to abandon, what he wanted to save everybody from, but he wasn't able to. The loss of Shigaraki, the loss of so many of his friends, it's driven him practically insane. The idea that he couldn't save everyone drives him insane, especially when you look at everything around him and All Might not being there anymore. Izuku doesn't know what to do. Not at all. But luckily, he has one figure, one person that he can still count on. And that's Shota Aizawa, his sensei. Aizawa tells him many things and gives him just a glimmer of hope. Even though they've lost so many, there's still a chance. And it all starts with her. He points toward the little girl Eri. It's been a year, maybe a year and a half or so. Time doesn't seem relevant when you lose so often. The villains may have not been able to take over everything yet, and maybe Izuku and everyone around him were able to slow them down drastically, but they still didn't win. They didn't win like how All Might always won. Still, Izuku would question how Eri can help, how a little girl can do so much. Well, he doesn't want to put any pressure on her to do anything drastic. But that's the thing. Aizawa tells him that he's seen crazy things that she's done with her quirk, and it's just too risky not to try. He asks Aizawa what he's talking about, and he explains that Eri has an amazing power. She might have this rewind quirk, but she even might be able to rewind time. Izuku asks, how would she even be able to do that? We're talking about an entirety of a planet. Then if we're talking about the grand scheme of things, the entirety of the universe, how is she supposed to rewind everything? Aizawa shakes his head, saying that one night Eri got scared and was having a bad dream. Her quirk began to go off, and when Aizawa woke up, he woke up a year prior. It's odd, he knows, but in a flash, he was back to the present. He saw it. He saw the past. He saw everything that happened beforehand. It was just a minute, maybe. He's not sure how long it truly was in the outside world, but he saw something that happened a couple years ago, or maybe a year ago. It's hard for him to remember now. It seems like there's lingering effects. But he tells Izuku that this may be their chance. This may be their only chance. Izuku continues to speak with Aizawa, and even speaks with some of the survivors, or the people that are still in his class and are left over, still living, being that of Ochaku Uraraka, Katsuki Bakugo, and a couple others, being that of Momo Yaoyorozu and Kirishima. The numbers are dwindling faster than you can possibly imagine, and everybody and everyone says the same thing. If you get a chance, go back, change it, and save everyone like you wanted to. He said it before. He is the Deku who always does his best. So he's going to make sure nobody has to worry anymore. Izuku would approach Aizawa and Eri, asking how this is all going to work. Aizawa says they've been working on something with Nezu, a chamber of some sorts. There's a good chance that when Izuku is underneath or under this trance and gone back to the past, that he'll be vulnerable and that people would be able to come and attack. And if the villains decide to come and attack while he's gone, well, let's just say that's not going to be good. Izuku nods and enters this so-called chamber, and he goes in with Eri. Aizawa tells him that time will most likely work far differently when he's under. Eri most likely will have to channel all of her power within his brain and kind of go on autopilot. So even Eri won't really be present with them, but she will not be with you. Aizawa explains this to the best of his ability, at least from the theories he's been more or less summing up to. But still, Izuku wants to take the chance, asking if Eri is still okay, if she's up to the task, and Eri tells him that she wants to be a hero just like Deku, and that's what she's going to do. She'll send him back in time, and she'll use her power for good, to save everybody they lost. Eri is determined, and this makes Izuku even more determined as well. He lays down, and immediately he can feel a sensation rush over his body. Electricity begins to surge all around him, and, well, let's just say where they are now in this bunker is definitely suitable and needed to happen, because the electricity around him begins to bounce off the walls as if it's sparking everywhere, colliding with each other over and over and over again, until the walls itself begin to change, changing into this odd, different looking color. No longer those steel walls, wooden, colorful, and different. Those walls are no longer the same, and the bench he lays on, no longer a steel bench, now a bed that he's been laying on as his phone begins to ring next to him. He sits up to see all of his All Might memorabilia. He's back. Is this really his room? He hears a call from beneath, under the floor. It sounds like it's from a living room. This is his house. He shakes his head, and the memories slowly rush back. It's his mother, Inko Midoriya, calling him for breakfast. He grabs his phone and grabs his stuff and immediately runs down. He sees his mother and gives her a big hug. Inko is confused, asking if he had a bad dream, and Izuku says that he did. Yeah, a bad dream. That's what that was. He knows it wasn't a bad dream. That's the furthest from a bad dream he's ever had, and he immediately asks his mom what they're eating. Well, Inko immediately says that, well, it's gonna be an amazing meal because she's excited that he's going to UA. And Izuku is shocked to hear this, and, well, they're only one day away. Izuku is happy to know exactly where they are in terms of the period of time, but this doesn't mean everything is going to be squared off and okay. What happens when he starts messing with things? When he starts changing things? What kind of future will he mold? I mean, it has to be better than the one they live in now, right? Well, still, Izuku has a game plan, at least to an extent. He believes that if he can more or less capture Shigaraki and more or less capture those people and put them away, he should be able to be in a perfect situation, or at least in a good enough situation to more or less save everybody. Maybe. Unknowns everywhere. He doesn't know exactly what's happening and doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he knows he'll have to only pick and choose his battles. He'll have to really pick and choose exactly what he wants to save and what he doesn't want to save. Izuku would exit his home and just breathe in the fresh air. He would go out for a last little bit of a workout before his first day at UA, and eventually the day would be over. It's as if the day eclipsed faster than he could possibly imagine. He hasn't been like this in a long time. He doesn't sleep very much. I mean, all he does is patrol. All he does is make sure people are safe. It's kind of nice. It's fitting. The past was so sweet. He really didn't think too hard about the past back then. In the moment, he took it for granted. It was just another day. He would kill to have this day back. He would give everything up to have a day like this back. Still, Izuku lays back down in his bed, sleeping the day off, and in a moment, he saw the walls, the steel walls once again. But just as he saw them, they flashed away, as if the drowning of sleep knocked him back and forth between future and past. Izuku would get up the next morning and go off to UA. The first day of UA, he knows exactly what's going to happen. Door too big, walk in, Bakugo gets mad. How did he get there? How did Bakugo get there? That's the question Izuku should be asking. Well, whatever. Talented or not, Bakugo was a bit of a hard ass here, and he knows exactly what to expect. He walks in and just sits down. Bakugo giving him his little speech of him cheating, or more or less, somehow he got in, but he shouldn't have got in, but Izuku ignores it. Eventually meeting a girl by the name of Ochaku Uraraka, someone who he's made a strong friendship and relationship with in the future. He smiles to see that this version of Ochako is so much more happier than the one in the future. I mean, nobody's happy that happy in the future anyways, so it's good to see some of them at ease and in peace. Izuku would continue listening, eventually leading to Aizawa walking in. Aizawa, the one, his teacher, his sensei, and he's healthy, completely healthy, not injured, not missing limbs, not missing arms, nothing. He's healthy, perfect, and perfectly fine. Izuku's happy to hear this and happy to see this, and eventually it leads to them doing a bit of training. The quirk assessment test, let's just say, would go a little bit better than you'd possibly imagine. Izuku has his memories, knowing how to utilize One for All a lot better. His body may be a bit injured because of it, because his body right now is nowhere near as trained than the one he has in the future. But still, 5%, 10% of One for All, he's just fine. Launching the ball through the sky, speeding through races and stretches, and, well, he easily is able to eclipse everybody, more or less, leading to nobody getting quote-unquote expelled. But still, it's something Izuku has to think about. All of this, will it matter that he passed the exam this time around? He doesn't know. But he knows that he needs to just properly go through this and knock out all the main problems. And the main problem is Shigaraki. That's all he can think about. All he can think about. How does he stop it? Maybe if he stops the USJ. Maybe if he stops that, everything else will fall in line. Everything else will stop as well. Maybe. So he goes through everything once again. Heroes versus villains, easy peasy. Gets finished up and everything goes about the same. But now it's time for him to clean up. Clean up everything. So he immediately sends an anonymous tip. An anonymous tip that tells Aizawa and many others of the potential attack on the USJ. As a trap, of course, Aizawa wants to still go there, but they're going to be stocked up on heroes, a ton of them, including the one and only All Might. They're going to make sure that he's ready, and they're going to make sure he's suitable. And Izuku did the same thing, making sure All Might didn't go out on that patrol, didn't go out and try to save people, wasting his time. And when they arrive at the USJ, the villains would as well. But they were not ready. Far from it. Izuku tells All Might the Nomu isn't the issue. It's that person right there, pointing towards Shigaraki, and he asks Izuku how he knows this. And Izuku shakes his head and says he just knows. He can tell. Shigaraki stares back at Izuku as if he's familiar with him. It's odd. It's as if the presence of Izuku, this version of him, is kind of messing with Shigaraki. As Izuku stares back, a flicker happens in his mind, a flicker of the USJ. The original USJ begins to fade out of his mind, the one that he saw All Might fight on the Nomu, or fight the Nomu, the one that he sees All Might run out of steam. All of it is gone. The heroes combine together to defeat not only the Nomu, but also Shigaraki. Now this is insane. Izuku doesn't even know what's happening, doesn't even know what's going on. It seems like things are quickly developing and quickly changing in his own mind. He sees everything going on. Wow, it's amazing. Izuku watches it all. It's as if it's playing as a movie. His body moves on its own, and he even affects everything around them as well. Defeating different villains, the capture of Shigaraki, the capture of Kurogiri, and the restriction of the Nomu. Yes, everything went so much better. So much better. His memories rush through, and the finish of the USJ concludes. They not only captured Shigaraki and Kurogiri, but they captured the Nomu and many other villains that invaded that day. Izuku thinks that maybe he can go back now. Maybe everything will be fixed. But when he flashes back, well, it doesn't seem like anything is different. The metal walls around him, the bunker, the shadows that cover him entirely seem exactly the same. This leads him to thinking that it's the same world. It's exactly the same, in that he didn't do enough to fix it. So he goes back in, as if he's subconsciously jumping in and out, not even knowing how he's really doing it. The next time he truly sees anything different is in the coming points, starting with the UA Sports Festival. Luckily, Aizawa isn't actually that injured, and throughout the sports festival, Izuku sees so many different things. Not only a memory of him basically winning, but on top of that, him taking on Todoroki, Bakugo, and everybody else. He runs through the obstacle course race, blitzing and destroying everybody. He goes with the same exact team as he did in the cavalry battle, destroying and outwitting everybody as well, utilizing One For All to a pretty and a really good extent. On top of that, he kind of avoids using his other quirks. He doesn't know what it's going to do to his body. He has no clue, so he avoids that entirely. His memories are shaping, changing, everything that's happening. It's as if he's not only changing the future, but perfecting the things that he could have when he was here. Izuku sees it all. Eventually, the fight with Shinso would go his way. But this time around, when he gets locked in, thinking that maybe he should follow suit with what he did last time, he sees all of the members of One For All, or all of the users of One For All. And when he does, they're all, well, visible. All being able to see. Izuku, his mouth not even covered, and he greets them all. They all tell him that what he's doing now is something they have no idea about. There's so many unknowns with the past and future and how the timeline works. But they wish him luck, and it's now time for him to win this fight. He snaps out of it just like he did before, just like he did in the past. But this time around, the voices of the One For All users and even himself standing there, well, that's what woke him up. He defeats Shinso, kicking him out, and this leads on to a fight with Shoto Todoroki. With some encouragement, Izuku is able to get Shoto to use his fire side. Watching as the blaze burns, Izuku smiles so wide. He's happy to see Todoroki here. This Todoroki. Yes, it might not be the one from the future, but it's still a Todoroki. He fights with Todoroki, eventually defeating him, eventually leading to the finale everybody wanted. This finale right here is something Izuku believes needed to happen. Maybe, just maybe, if Bakugo truly got the fight with Izuku, truly got the fight, the head-to-head with the One For All user himself, maybe the forest training incident wouldn't have occurred at all. The fight is a spectacle. Bakugo has been watching Izuku for a long time, writing down his tactics, making sure to perfect his own moves. He refuses to allow Izuku to win this fight, because he's going to show him that he's a Deku. He's useless, and he's better, but that's just not what's going to happen. Past or future, there truly is no reality that Izuku will allow Bakugo to win this fight. After a long drawn out fight, Izuku would outlast Bakugo, defeating him by kicking him out of the ring, and he's the winner. With a kick that he deems a Detroit smash of a kick, eliminating Bakugo, well, doesn't actually set him off. Even Bakugo is mad, but still, he holds respect for Izuku, at least to a certain extent. He gets back up on the stage, and eventually they would await the awards. The awards would come in, giving Izuku first place, and Bakugo second. Bakugo would turn to his right, and he would look at Izuku. He would be mad, but his face would relax, and he would tell him that next time, he won't lose. Izuku looks back at him and smiles, saying that he knows that the next fight they have will be one for the ages, will be better than any other fight they've ever had in their lives, and it will be better than anything anybody would ever have seen. Izuku tells him that they're both going to be great heroes, and he knows that for a fact. Bakugo looks away, but slightly smirks. In his own head, he knows they're both going to be one hell of a hero group. And if everybody else falls short, he knows that himself and Izuku will take the place of All Might. After the event of the UA Sports Festival was over, well, it was pretty simple. Izuku would go on to train with Gran Torino after being told about it from All Might. All Might shaking like a leaf, terrified, because, well, you know, he's terrified of Gran Torino. But still, Izuku would take on Gran Torino, learn what he can, but eventually Gran Torino would realize something. Izuku Midoriya has more information than he could possibly imagine. How? How does he know so much? Gran Torino would sit him down and ask him questions, and he would just get the response and the facial expressions from Izuku. He questions Izuku, asking him how he knows certain things. He asks him questions he has no business knowing, but for some reason, his facial expressions say that he's lying. Says that he's somehow in the know of certain responses. How? Izuku shakes his head and says that he can't say. He really can't. He promises that everything will eventually make sense. Well, hopefully. Izuku doesn't know what to say after this, but Gran Torino tells him that whatever happens, he needs to find his own path, his own journey. This journey, with whatever road bumps to come, he'll be able to conquer it. But he needs to hold on. He needs to try. And he needs to give as much effort as possible. He will watch his friends die. He will watch his friends get hurt. This is the name of the game they chose to be in. Izuku's hearing this, and he's shocked to hear what Gran Torino has to say. Gran Torino even brings up Nana Shimura, saying that he watched her die, and he couldn't do anything about it. That's the world they live in. That's the time they live in. This is ironic. Izuku's memories begin to change, once again adapting to the world around him. But hearing this just puts Izuku in complete shock. Wow. Wow. That's all he can say. It's true. Tragedy will always follow a hero. Tragedy is always going to come. Nonetheless, Gran Torino tells him that they have patrolling to do, heading off to Hosu City and leading to the events of the entirety of Hosu City once again. We're talking about Stain, the hero killer, and many other things happening as well, including the Nomus. Yes, the scenario might have changed drastically because of the capture of Shigaraki and Kurogiri, but still, All For One is looking for a way to get them out, and All For One wants to make sure that it goes without a hitch. But still, Izuku hopes that he can prevent any casualties and anything to happen in the near future, so when he arrives at Hosu, the defeat of the hero killer was imminent and extremely precise, including his technique with Todoroki. He's seen it all. Izuku has seen exactly what happens, the moves the hero killer uses, and what's to come. So he was ready for it. And he was also ready for Endeavor to be forced to take the credit. This doesn't mind him, or this doesn't matter to him, really. He watches as Endeavor takes the glory for this, but it's okay. It's completely okay. He doesn't care. Because as long as the end goal is the safety of Hero Society, that is what matters to him most. He wants to see everybody safe. Everybody be back to smiling once again. So Izuku would end up in the hospital and would end up finishing up his internship. The internship would be over and everything seems to be falling in line. His memories molding and changing, but there's one destination that he worries about the most. The fight between All Might and All For One. The capture of All For One himself without allowing Shigaraki and anybody else to escape. That is what matters the most. That is the crucial moment. Yes, he'll have to take on Overhaul once again, but he's seen what Overhaul is capable of and he knows how to save Eri this time around. There is no hesitation. There is no moment's notice. He is running out of time. So he crosses all of those bridges when he gets to them. He heads into his final exams. It's as if he's so happy to take an exam, so happy to, do something normal for once again. So happy to do something what a kid could do, you know? Izuku is just smiley the entire time, even when he's taking the test, the written portion, eventually leading to the 1 versus 2 against All Might himself. Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya versus All Might. But this time around there's respect, and this time around they have coordination, and Bakugo listens. So this fight is far, far, far better than normal. Izuku even revealing more strength, being able to keep up, if not outpace All Might. All Might is happy to see this, his protege. He watches his student, and also his biggest rival, be able to outpace and take on All Might. This world is truly going to be better because of them. Izuku's mind begins to change once again, seeing the future and past all at once, and he sees this version of himself. He sees it all over again. A smile grows on his face. He believes that he's closer than he could possibly imagine to the true happiness. Everybody and their safety. He can see it. He can see it all. He continues on, and he continues pushing himself. The forest training camp goes on without a hitch. He watches as the Pussycats throw him off the mountain, and he's still so nostalgic of what's going on. But those feelings of nostalgia would go away eventually. They would slip from his mind when more or less the timeline was changing, when his mind, his memories were changing as well. So the training camp, he now remembers it as a full training camp. No villain invasion, no Shigaraki, no capture of Bakugo, no nothing. They go on, they train hard, and their quirks grow immensely. And Aizawa himself recognizes how powerful Izuku truly is getting and how strong he's been getting throughout this time. But let's just say, after all of the forest training camp is over, everybody is excited. They're stronger, classmates are stronger, everyone is stronger. It's time to go. It's time to truly take that next step to being a hero. Yeah, that's until their bus flips. On the way back home, their bus flips and collides with a building. It seems like this was all meant to happen. It seems like the villains did have a plan. They just had one without Shigaraki. Not too far from here, All For One is currently fighting All Might, and these other villains are trying to occupy them as well. Izuku's memory is still shifting and changing and moving around constantly like a clock. The clock and time, just like time itself, continues to move. Izuku immediately begins to think, okay, I have to do something. We have to make sure, guarantee that All For One gets captured. That's what matters to him. He begins to head off without anybody noticing, and he looks for All Might. He looks to see where he is, and when he looks through a building, he eventually spots him, seeing All Might fighting All For One. But it looks like everything is happening exactly how it should. Izuku continues to watch closely. All that needs to happen now is the fall of All For One. We put him in jail, and it's over. Everything is done. Everything that happened before doesn't matter anymore. Everything's going to be reset and finished. That's all Izuku can think about. All that has to happen is All For One to be defeated. As he thinks this, and as he remarks this, and as he remarks it to himself, he hears rumblings. Ground quaking, everything turning. It's as if it's an earthquake, but it's not an earthquake. That is no earthquake. A giant monster of a being, a creature, comes racing out, slamming into All Might as All Might slams into a building himself. This creature is as big as a mountain. A mountain. Izuku is in complete shock. No way. Izuku has seen this monster before. It's Gigantomachia. Gigantomachia was the trump card that All For One had to bring in. Had to. The only way. Izuku couldn't even fathom, couldn't even think. How did he forget about this? This is something so major. He messed up bad. Izuku goes in there immediately to just preoccupy Gigantomachia, knowing he can't necessarily defeat him on his own. He needs Gigantomachia to somehow be weakened. And on top of that, he just needs to hope that this version of Gigantomachia is weaker as well. Luckily, All Might isn't completely and severely injured, and once Izuku is able to fend off Gigantomachia and forces the other heroes to fight the monster of this monstrous creature, it seems like the opening to defeat All For One is right there. All Might takes his opening with a United States of Smash as Izuku stretches out Black Whip, holding All For One still, landing a solid blow right to All For One's face and knocks him out cold. Gigantomachia sees this and charges forward, but just as he does, a mist all around him begins to surround the area, a mist from Midnight herself. Izuku knows that this is not going to be enough. He knows that they need to put this thing down. They need to use whatever power, whatever strength, whatever they possibly can to finish this thing off, to knock him out, put him in a vulnerable position so that they can allow Midnight to more or less put him to sleep for good, at least for a long time. Izuku does just that, helping all of the heroes with as much firepower as possible. People like Endeavor, people like Izuku himself, and many others begin to join in. Even Aizawa joins in with the entirety of Class 1A. The idea of not having a hero license does not matter right now. This thing needs to go down for good. Best Genius jumps in as well, pinning the monster to the ground as they all hold him there, trying to mitigate any damage they possibly can. Eventually, the mist begins to surround Gigantomachia. The mist begins to be inhaled throughout his body more and more and more. Midnight tiring out from doing this, but luckily, with a combined effort of everybody, they were able to put Gigantomachia to sleep. On top of this, they might not have enough room in prison for him, but they begin to create anything they possibly can to hold All For One, hold Gigantomachia, and not let anybody from the League of Villains out. They will not let the League of Villains or anybody else re-emerge. Izuku's memories begin to develop, change, and he remembers all of what just happened once again. He remembers it all like it was a fact, like it just happened, and like everything that just went down happened perfectly. There's a couple other things he needs to make sure happen in unison, and that all leads up to him getting his provisional hero license. Far easier than normal, but he keeps it relatively simple. On top of that, he heads off to Sir Nida's agency, proving his worth and then eventually leading them to facing off with Overhaul once again. The plan is simple and the plan is straight. He knows exactly where he's going to be and where he's going to be in general in terms of the siege on his building and the siege on his base. So when they siege it, they're able to find him, detain him so fast, and you couldn't possibly imagine how fast they would get in and get out of that place. Even allowing Mirio to not even get shot by the bullet, not even lose his quirk. This is amazing. You don't have the casualty of Mirio. You save Eri, and all of it seems to be falling in place. Izuku couldn't be happier. Everything that occurred and everything that seemed to be so detrimental seems to now be lining all up. Anything else they have to do in terms of saving, helping, and doing anything they could possibly can, Sir Night-Eye himself even survives this time around, making Izuku happier than you could possibly imagine. And any other villain groups out there at this moment, he goes out with not only his team, with Sir Night-Eye's agency, his class, and many others to take them down. And they take them down convincingly. Hero Society may not have All Might, but now it is safe. Izuku's memories bend back once again, and that night he goes to sleep, and everything around him, the walls, the floor, and everything else changes. The steel that was once there every time he goes in and out of a sleep and a sleepless state, the steel around him, the area around him, the electricity, well, the bunker that was there is now gone. He awakens and he looks around. He sees that he's in a dorm, still in that said dorm. While he walks out of the dorm to see many of them, many of the people, seeing Todoroki, Bakugo, everybody's here. Kirishima, Tenya. He looks at the date and he sees that the date is the same day that he left, the same day that he got transferred back in time. He's happy. Oh my goodness. Everything is good now. Everything is better. He walks through everywhere. He walks through everywhere he possibly can, seeing all of his friends still alive. He walks out of the dorms and he continues to look around. He continues to see more and more and more. As he walks out, he sees Aizawa. Aizawa, healthy as could be, walks over to Izuku asking if he's okay. And Izuku says he is. He couldn't be better. He says that he's just checking in because he has a couple errands to run, and then he'll be back in the class. They'll be starting class a little bit later this time around. Izuku hears this and nods and tells them that he'll relay the message to his class. Aizawa thanks him as he leaves. Izuku continues to walk around to see people that he doesn't even know personally. Years of students, first years, second years, that he doesn't even know. This is the next generation of students, it seems. Izuku continues to look around in complete awe. What is happening? What happened? Until he hears a familiar voice. A voice that he missed so much. All Might. He turns to see All Might as he runs and gives him a hug. All Might's confused. What's going on? He asks Izuku, and Izuku tells him that, well, nothing. It's nothing serious. He brings up the fact that they'll be having dinner with his mother tonight. Did he forget? And Izuku says no, he definitely did not forget. And All Might also brings up some of the work he needs to still do with Sir Night-Eye. Izuku asks if him and Sir Night-Eye are on good terms, and All Might just laughs. Of course we are, kid. What do you mean? Izuku has a sigh of relief. This is insane. How did everything work out so well? How did everything fall into place like this? All Might's back. Aizawa's healthy. This is great. This is amazing. Just as Izuku is thinking about this, just as he's walking around UA in complete awe, laughing, smiling, he even sees people like Eri, who's still there training and working hard, learning, getting her education. And on top of that, well, he continues to walk around seeing the teachers, some who lived, some who passed away in the past. But he doesn't understand at this point. Why is he so happy now? The memories have now molded entirely. Everything he remembered from before is now gone. No longer within his psyche. No longer within his mind. But as he walks around with a smile on his face, and everybody thinks that it's just the same Izuku, that same Izuku that's always happy, and the same Izuku that's going to save everybody with a smile, there's another Izuku. There's another one that did not get the happy ending. This Izuku woke up, but instead of waking up to a new foundation around him, he woke up to the walls being torn down. Izuku woke up to the metal walls around him being ripped to pieces, falling, the bunker breaking, and eventually he looks up to see two figures, Shigaraki and All For One. The white hair and creepy skin makes his heart drop. He would look toward Eri, telling her to run, but there was no running. He looks around to see that the protective area of UA, desolate, destroyed, broken. The villains stand in front of him. The one-for-all user by the name of Izuku Midoriya failed. He failed. Well, at least to an extent. The multiverse is a hell of a thing. Yes, you may go back in time, but it doesn't mean that they will save you. You going back in time creates a brand new universe. Every time he did one little thing that was different, changed the universe that, well, was created, that was branched off. Some lived. Some had an Izuku Midoriya strong enough to defend against All Might and Shigaraki. Some were in eternal peace. All villains defeated. All Might alive. Class 1A, now third years, leading on into being, well, pro heroes. But some are like this. Some are darkness. Some are terrifying. Sometimes this is reality. Sometimes there needs to be a realization that there is no escaping reality. Because you may go back in time. You may try to fix things. And maybe, just maybe, a universe is saved. But there are plenty more that you just left in ruins. And that is the end of What If Deku Went Back in Time. And if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, and make sure to leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.